Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laura Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Monday night, September the 12th. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And this is like show number 806, I think. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. You know, I'm not a counselor or therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here. And you know, I didn't have a clue how long I'd be doing Blog Talk Radio. I had no idea. When I first started out, I was pretty nervous the first few months I was doing it, and you know, wasn't sure where I was going with it. But I just thought, well, somebody's got to start talking about this stuff, and there are people out there talking about it. You know, you just have to look around. And I'm not the only one. I just want to be one more voice, right? Well, that's what my goal was when I started doing Blog Talk Radio, was to just be one more voice out here, you know. And I appreciate everybody who's listened to me and actually been along with this journey with me for a couple of years. You know, I do appreciate it. And it's incredibly harsh, this stuff, you know. Like, you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows, because I just tell it like it is, and I don't sugarcoat it, I don't minimize it, I just tell it like it is. And that's, especially since I started talking about my own story. And you know, when I first started doing Blog Talk Radio, I was actually mostly just reading out material that I found, and because I was going through my own process, my own healing process, as well as volunteering for an organization, you know, to stop child abuse. And so I was mainly not sure how to handle the situation as far as talking publicly about this stuff. But yeah, as I started to come forward with my story, you know, it opened up the door for me to really talk about what these issues are, and to really share, you know, my views, you know, personally, instead of reading from material. And so it's kind of stopped reading from material, especially on this show. You know, in the morning I do my own healing journey in the morning, one child abuse survivor to another, and so I read from material because that's my healing journey. That's what I'm working through and working with, right? But at night I've just been sort of talking about these issues, you know, and like this sort of seems more comfortable for me now. And you know, like, especially because I've read so much of this stuff already on these 805 shows. You know what I mean? It's like I've just read pretty much everything that's out there. There's just not much new information, right? So you have to listen to at your own discretion to all of my shows. And, you know, if you're under the age of 18, I ask you have someone listen to the show with you, an adult who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening, because I talk about a lot of adult content, a lot of adult material. As much as I'm all about stopping child abuse, it's not for young children. My shows are not for younger children. And anybody under the age of 18, you know, just keep yourself safe and learn how to keep yourself safe online. And you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and you have to be aware that, you know, if you're under the age of 18, you really do need to have someone listen to the show with you to sort of see if they can help you make a decision whether you should be listening or not. You know, I'm talking about abuse. Abuse is a sensitive subject. It's a serious subject, and it's sort of like, this just drops me to speak. You know, like, I started writing my blog last October 2009. So right before I started doing Blog Talk Radio, I started writing a blog, and it was a public-facing blog, and I wanted people to know what happened to me as a child. I called it Not So Fond Memories Growing Up in an Abusive Home. And I started to, you know, as this blog entries would just come out, and I really wanted the world to know what happened to me as a child, what happened to my siblings, what my parents put us through, what my parents put each other through, and you know, and then a little bit about what my siblings put me through. And so, you know, I wanted the world to see just one more situation where, you know, children slipped through the cracks, and no help. There was no help for these children, and that was me. And so, you know, it just became very imperative, really almost a critical thing for me to speak out and allow my voice to be heard somewhere. And I was like, well, whether people are listening to my shows or not, I've got to talk. I have to get this stuff out. It was very important for me to talk about it. Because I had kept it, really had only told a few people in my life, you know, what had happened to me as a child, and it was imperative, because I thought, I'm going to go to my grave and nobody's going to know, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to know what happened to me, nobody's going to know what happened to my siblings, and I was really crying out for, it was an outcry, you know what I mean, for someone to pay attention, you know, and someone to help these kids out here right now, you know what I mean, who are being abused and who are not going to get any help, you know. It's like, we have to, you know, think about this very seriously. Like, this is reality for these kids, and will there be any help? Probably not. You know, because even if they do report it, the system is so screwed up, you know, that the child's going to end up at somewhere where they aren't going to be looked after anyway. And we have such a huge mess on our hands, you know what I mean? Like, as far as That's how we view and take care of children. Like, this just makes me sick to my stomach. But, this fight really is for my inner children, you know what I mean? Like, this is all about, the fact that my inner children, which is me, me, a child being abused, it never should have happened. And this is my voice. This is my fight for her, for my little child, through the different stages of my life where, I didn't receive any help and I was just so mistreated, you know what I mean? And I just, I know that these little kids out here, I'm hoping that my voice will be their voice, because there's so many of them that their voices will be silenced. They won't be able to, at the age of 40, 45 years old, sit back and talk on Blog Talk Radio, because they'll be dead. They'll be in the morgue, They'll be in the ground. They'll be cremated, whatever. Like, this is horrific. And it just bothers me, you know what I mean, that we can't figure this out as a society. We can't figure this out even as a family. Families can't even figure it out, that you don't hurt your children, that you don't bash your children in the head and kill them, that you don't rape your children or molest them or sexually use them in any way, that you don't beat on your children, call your children names, maim your children, hurt your children. And yet we have families doing this all the time. And it's just like, almost every family? Pretty much. Why? Because 1 in 3 to 4 girls and 1 in 6 to 7 boys, those stats are pretty low. It's actually it's higher than that. It's like 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys that are sexually abused under the age of 18 by someone. And who is doing that? Generally a family member. Pay attention, everybody. Almost 38%, they say, is a parent or caregiver. The other, like 40-something or 50%, would be a close relative, sibling, or somebody, an aunt and uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever. And then there's a small percentage of people that know the child, like a neighbor, babysitter type person. And then the other 5% is stranger danger. But who are parents telling their kids to be aware of? Strangers. Watch out for strangers. It's like what they should be doing is saying, watch out for grandma and grandpa. Watch out for brother, watch out for sister, because that's who's abusing children sexually mainly. And people just don't get it. They don't get it. And they also don't get the damage. They don't get the damage that is done. They don't get that. I know too many people who have been sexually abused as children who are authors now and who have had the opportunity and the awesome opportunity to meet and to talk to and to get to know on a personal level, who have been sexually abused. And they, along with myself, have a real different story to tell you about what we went through as children, being sexually abused and being abused in any way. And so thank God for the people who are willing to raise their voices and not sugarcoat it, not minimize it, and say, oh, it's okay, it's all forgiven, it was fine, it didn't even hurt. There's a lot of that going on, right? And that's very much just denial. And there's a whole lot of people out there that the only way that they can cope is denial. And that's the survivors that the abuse was just so horrific and that they can't do anything but denial. And I understand that, because I as a survivor, I know how painful it is to have to face this stuff. And I'm just not doing denial, right? So, but I know that there's a lot of people who have to do denial. And so I understand that part of it, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't put them down or run them down because, my God, it is hard to face. Who can blame them? My sister's in denial. I mean, who can blame them, right? You can't blame somebody for wanting to be in denial. I kind of wish that I could be in denial. I used to wish that. I'd be like, man, why can't I just be in denial like my sister? Then I could just cherish the moments that never were. It's like I could cherish my childhood that never was. It'd be wonderful. I could recreate a new childhood for myself. And but in reality, that's just not the way it's going to happen, right? I mean, I can't go back and redo and recreate anything. It was done. And what I can do is learn how to deal with it and learn how to feel better about myself, you know what I mean? But this whole issue, of child sexual abuse, I'm really on this right now because this is where I'm at, right? I'm working through my healing journey as far as the CSA incest that I suffered as a child, and this is really where I'm at. So this is why I figure I just keep going with these shows. But, it's just, it's so upsetting that society still wants to just minimize it, just wants to act like it's no big deal, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, how about we'll just have somebody rape you and see how you like it. We'll just have somebody molest you and you can say no all you want, but they're going to overpower you. They're going to do what they want to you. They're going to threaten you or whatever. They're going to use it as, they're going to manipulate you to make you see it's a game or whatever. And we'll see how you like it. You know what I mean? And especially put yourself in a child's shoes. It's absolutely horrific. And so society, so many people, so much of society wants to just excuse it away, and oh, it's not that big of a deal, and why should we be concerned about it? And it's so ridiculous. When you think about 1 in 3 to 4 girls, or 1 in 4 boys, now they're saying, have been sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. Like, this is not cool at all. It's incredibly damaging, and people like to sit and minimize it. And it's like, well, I got news for you. You can't minimize it. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. It's horrific. It never should happen. Kids are not sex toys. Children are not sex toys. I'm here to tell everybody here tonight. I really don't care who doesn't like what I'm saying. You know what I mean? This is my show, and I can say what I want. I pay to do my own shows. Thank you very much, and have been for 2 years. And so it's my show, and I can say children are not sex toys. And people need to stop looking at children as sex objects. And because children are not sex objects. You know what I mean? And there's a whole, 3/4 of the world that thinks that they are. What is going on with that? Like when are we going to wake up and smell the coffee and stop protecting predators and start protecting children, right? Because there's a whole lot of protection of predators going on, child sexual predators and pedophiles. They're all protected, well and good, great. What about the children, right? What about these little kids out here that are not being protected from these child sexual predators and pedophiles when the child sexual predators and pedophiles have all the protection? Like, what's that all about? Well, it's that whole issue that victims have no rights. Perpetrators have all the rights. Victims have no rights. Right? In every situation, that's the way it is. Why? Because society is backwards, twisted, sick, and dysfunctional. That's why. Because people want to stand up for these predators and pedophiles and people who go out and kill and maim and torture other people, whether it's a child or an adult. They have rights, whereas the victim didn't have any rights and still doesn't, right? Never will. Those rights were taken away. So why are we not taking away the rights of these other people? Oh, well, we do for a short little period of time, and then we say, oh, they're rehabilitated, then we send them back out into the public, they don't do what they're supposed to do, and they disappear off the radar. You get a handful that will actually comply, and there probably are a few that actually don't reoffend, but the amounts that reoffend just tell me that, and the rest of us who are paying attention, that it's not a good system, it's not working, And what are we going to do with these people? I don't know. I'm all about human rights. I don't believe in just killing people just because they've done something wrong. But it's like, what are we going to do? How do you protect your children? You can't even let your kids do anything? You can't even let your grandparents come around because they might molest your children or something? That's pretty well what it is. I mean, my God. Our brothers and sisters, same thing, right? It's like, what? You really have to protect your children from your own family more than you do a stranger, I tell you that. But will it ever happen? No, because nobody wants to admit that dad's a sexual abuser or that mom's a sexual abuser. Nobody wants to admit that. And nobody wants to sit there and admit that, possibly one of the siblings is sexually abusing some of the children. No, we don't want that dirty little secret to get out, do we? Right? And so many times people will just walk on by. They will not get that child any help. They'll blame the child. They'll blame the victim in the situation and say, well, it was all your fault. You know what I mean? Which is very common, actually. And, this is absolutely ridiculous. When we can't even stop it within homes, how are we going to stop the other 5% of stranger danger stuff, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, the people aren't snapping and aren't realizing that it's only 5%, 5 to 10% stranger danger. The rest is pretty well family members, right? And if 1 out of 3 and 4 girls and 1 out of 4 boys are being sexually abused, and 90 to 95% is being perpetrated by somebody the child knows, and 38% is a parent, what's that telling us? And the other 40-something% is a relative, a close relative, which means a sibling or an aunt or uncle or cousin or twice removed uncle or something. No, this is reality, people. This is reality. This is my reality. This is my reality, being raped and sodomized by my brother and sexually used by my brother. And, he was an adult man, right? I was an 8-year-old child. So it's like, come on. Whose fault was that? Who perpetrated that crime? That was a crime, And it's like, it was allowed to go on. It was allowed to continue because my mother was being sexually abused, and she figured, hey, well, I'm getting mine, so you're getting yours. Too bloody bad, And that's really sad, but that's the reality of it. And so, when nobody's going to protect that child, they're going to have no protection. Who's going to protect them? Family members aren't going to protect them. They're probably being abused too, right? And many times they're just so warped they don't care. And that's the case in my family. My family didn't care. They didn't care that my mother was being abused. They didn't care that anybody was being abused. Nobody in my family would stand up for anybody, except for there was one of my brothers that used to, but he got killed when he was 19. And then I took over the role when I was a kid, to stand up against this stuff. But, what could I do? I was a little kid, right? So, people just won't stand up against this stuff. They just won't. They just allow it to go on, allow it to continue, even though they know that, there's a possibility that Grandpa is a child molester, but, nobody wants to say anything about it, right? It makes me sick to my stomach that people just allow this stuff to go on when they know or they think that there's a possibility because they were molested by Grandpa or by so-and-so in the family, whoever it was. I'm not just picking on grandparents, like just anybody in the family that abuses children sexually, there's always somebody that knows. It's like, come on, it's obvious, you know what I mean? And, like that's what I'm saying. I mean, I could just go over the signs again, the signs of child sexual abuse, and we could all talk about that. I've already done that, like 805 shows, you know what I mean? But what I'm talking about is the reality, is that this stuff is going to continue on because people will not do the right thing. Because out of fear or out of shame, whatever it is, many times it's just family shame type stuff. Oh, we can't let anybody know about this. You've got to cover this up. And that's a lot of the case, And then sometimes it's just that they don't care, like in my case. My mom was being abused by my dad, and so she figured, well, and my mother was my main abuser, and so she was just like, I don't care. It's your problem, You deal with it. Like, that's horrible. You don't do that to a child, and yet it's going to happen tonight and tomorrow night and the next day and the next day. And, this makes me so angry, like why people do these things to children. And this is where it's really important for people to, really start thinking about this stuff. Like if you have it within you, to, first of all, make sure the children in your own lives are not being abused that you know of, and also to get on board with programs like within your local communities, right, that are working, that you can see are working within the schools to promote, child sexual abuse information, to promote child sexual abuse prevention and help parents who may be struggling and different things like this. Like get involved, right? If you see there's programs like locally around you that you can get involved with, like, do something, but get involved, right? Like be a part of it, because they are always kind of counting on people to get involved. And I mean, it's not easy to have all that much time to do things. You know what I mean? I know how that goes, right? But because most of us have to work, most people work full time. But the thing is if you have time, you know what I mean, make sure that you do get involved, because it is so important. You know what I mean? Like to do something. Like I mean, I just left a board position that I just resigned, and I'm glad I got out of that. But the thing is I enjoyed doing what I was doing. I enjoyed being a part of it, and I enjoyed the mission to stop child abuse. Right? So I'll always appreciate that, and I'll always carry good memories of that. You know what I mean? But I don't know if that's necessarily what I want to do next. You know what I mean? But whatever we do, we need to be a voice for these kids out here, because they don't have a voice. They're being silenced. I mean, I was bound and gagged, you know what I mean? And, and I was silenced within my home anyway, because I was a non-person in my home, you know what I mean? Like I didn't count. I didn't matter. I was a non-person. It didn't matter that I didn't like what was happening to me, or didn't like what I was seeing in my family, because my opinions did not count, you know what I mean? And so, like, as an adult, I'm like, no, my opinions do count. And I am going to speak out against this stuff, you know what I mean? Because my voice does matter, and so does yours. So many times people are just shut down because people say, oh, do you really have to talk about that? Or do we really have to know about that? It's like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because children are suffering right now. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's just absolutely pathetic. And that's what has to be like such a drag on law enforcement. That these police officers have to go to these calls because a report's been made, you know what I mean, or the child's been taken to the hospital. They got to investigate, and they got to go, and they got to, maybe bring somebody in or whatever. They know this stuff's just going to keep on going because they see the reality of this. I grew up in this kind of shit, like I grew up in a house of hell, right? So I know what's going on here. You know what I mean? Like it's absolutely horrific, but this stuff will continue on because the people that are hurting children don't care. They don't care about these children. That's why they're hurting them. That's why they're abusing them. That's why they're sexually using them. They really don't care. And the family members are genuinely generally the same way, almost always. Because why? They're the same group of people that are in the same position of not caring for whatever reason, whether they were abused themselves or they just, they're just in on it, abusing the child too, or they, you know what I mean? Like, well, for whatever reason, cycle of abuse, right? We have to stop this garbage. And, this is just it. How many people that have just graduated, I mean, really, I like to point this out. This is so important for people to think about. Who's the next set of abusers? Well, the next set of parents, right? People say, well, it's not always young people that abuse. Take a look at the headlines. It's more of the young people that are abusing their children, killing their children, raping their children, sodomizing babies, really sick individuals. But anyway, these people all just graduated a few years ago or went through high school just a few years ago. Now they're pumping out kids, right? And then they're abusing these kids. These are the next set of abusers. Well, the kids that just graduated this last year, they'll have kids in a couple of years. They'll be the next set of abusers, right? It's just a cycle. It just keeps going and going and going. We really need programs in schools. Push for it, push for it. Because kids need to see nonviolent ways of behaving. Kids need to know how to behave nonviolently towards their children. There's no need to break a child. There's no need to kill a child. There's no need to sexually use a child. But they will. Why? I can't tell you. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's a sick and perverse and twisted world we live in. But it will happen because that's what their example was, and they will do it. Now, not every child who's been abused will abuse their children. That's a fact. But a lot of them will. My parents were both abused as children, and they went on to abuse all of their children, and some of my siblings went on to abuse their children. So it's cyclical, right? It totally is. But not every single one will, and so we can break the cycle, but we have to reach the young people because a lot of these young kids out here are growing up just like I did. They're being beaten, they're being pummeled, they're being cursed at, cussed at, thrown out of their house. They're being told that that they're going to be thrown out. They're going to go to foster care. They're not wanted. So they grow up and then they develop these attitudes. And if they don't get those attitudes in check, they're going to hurt somebody around them. And many times it's their own families. They'll have children and they will just repeat what was done to them. And it's sad, but that's the truth, right? And so we have to show children that there are other ways to cope. There's other ways to deal. There's nonviolent ways to handle things. And there's also the issue that if you're going to sexually use a child, go get yourself some sort of professional help because that's not right, And everybody should know that, but I don't know why people don't know that. But there's a whole group of people out there. I'd say 70-80% of the world thinks it's fine to sexually use children. Bunch of sick pervs, But that's the truth of it, and that's the reality. And that's sad, man. But that's exactly what it is. There's only, I would say, 20% of people would say that child sexual abuse is wrong. The rest say, well, I don't know. Or, oh, we're lobbying for adult child sexual relations. There's a whole lot of people out there doing that. Nobody's paying much attention to them, you know what I mean? But the thing is they're still out there doing it. You know what I mean? It makes me sick. And it's just like, what's going on? Like, can we not all come to the conclusion that child sexual abuse is wrong? And I don't care what kind of sexual abuse it is. I don't care if it's anything from unwanted sexual touching to molestation to rape to exploitation. I don't care what it is. It is all wrong. And why somebody could grow up thinking that it's okay is beyond me. And people say, well, it's because they were sexually abused. I don't care. That's not an excuse. We all know it's wrong. They knew it was wrong. They knew it hurt them. They knew what it did to them. And yet they go and do it to another child or their own child or somebody else's child, knowing that it's wrong? No, I don't care. It's a perversion. It's incredibly wrong, and people need to stop doing it. You know what I mean? Children are not sex toys. I'm going to actually get T-shirts made up that say children are not sex toys. And I don't care how much flack I take for it. I really don't. I'm going to wear them. And because it's true. Children are not sex toys. They should not be thought of. Now, children are their own sexual beings, but they have the right to grow up and mature with their own peers in their own good time without someone else feeling like they should just use them sexually for whatever reason. I don't care what it is. Children should have the right to their own bodies. Everybody has a right to their own body, and that's what I hope everybody realizes. We all have a right to our own body. and so do children, right? Why do people think that children don't have the right to their own bodies? You know what I mean? Like, like, why did my brother think it was okay that he raped me and sodomized me and then sexually used me, over and over again? Why did he think that was okay? Especially when I was bleeding and I was wounded and I was in a lot of pain, had a lot of agony, and crying and crying. You'd think that would make somebody stop. Hey, my mother was the same way. She used to beat the shit out of me, and I'd be crying, bleeding on the floor, and she would just be like, "Clean this mess up, or I'll beat you again." You know what I mean? And I mean, my family all knows this shit was going on. You know what I mean? And how somebody can do that, I don't know. It takes a very sick individual to be able to do something like that. And so, so I raise my voice. I tell it like it is, because these kids out here, they don't need somebody sitting around painting a pretty box and a pretty little picture saying, "Oh, we need to stop child abuse. Everybody get on board." No, we got to stop this crap, because these kids, they are suffering. I just don't know. I think it's because a lot of people don't know what it's like to be raped and sodomized as a child. They don't realize how freaking much that hurts. And they don't know what it's like to have their head bashed in, or to be beaten on, and pummeled and thrown into walls. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know what that feels like. They don't know what it's like to be thinking that, that, wow, my parents really hate me, or wow, how come they treat me this way? Am I not wanted? Am I not loved? I guess not. They're telling me to my face I'm not wanted, I'm not loved, and they're beating on me, and it freaking hurts. You know what I mean? And, it's just like, why are people sugarcoating this stuff? Just so society can make it so it's palatable, so that society can digest it little by little. It's like, no. This is why kids are dying. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to speak about this realistically. Nobody wants to be realistic about it. We got to stop this mess. Like, I can't even imagine somebody allowing somebody to hurt a child like that. I just can't. And thinking that it's okay. It's not okay. It never will be okay. And we as a society, man, we got to straighten up, and we got to start figuring this stuff out. Because how many kids are going to have to die? How many kids are going to have to not only die but be soul murdered and walk the planet for the rest of their life with this garbage? I mean, the ones that aren't killed are dead anyway. Most of them, a lot of people I know are in the same position I'm in, soul murdered. It's like, so many. When are we going to wake up as a society and realize that this has got to change, and we got to reach these young people, because the rest of them are the kids, I would say, who are past the age of I don't know, where they can reason and they can think. You know what I mean? It's too late. They're going to abuse their children. We need to get a hold of these little children and start working with them and training them up. But it's got to be nationwide. It can't be one school district, one city, and one town. That is not going to cut it. That's what's going on now. Tiny little programs, that are working. That's great for those kids, but it's not going to help in the national scheme of things. It's not going to help in the worldwide scheme of things. But I'm just talking North America right here tonight, But I mean, North America wide. This needs to be something that is instituted in every single schoolroom. Every single child should have to pass a curriculum of nonviolent behavior stuff, and also healthy parent-child relationships, child development. They shouldn't even be allowed to graduate at all until they ace this stuff. You know what I mean? Because they need to be the ones to carry this message out. No more. No more. You know what I mean? Because the rest, the people that are, the people now, it's just going to continue on for another 20 generations. But we need to reach these young kids now, so that in the next 10, 20 years, we can see some real change. That's about the only way it's going to happen. That's how I feel about it. Because when you take a look at the big picture, that's exactly what's going on. So, if you see a program that's working, man, promote it. Do all that you can to promote it, because it's got to be us to really make this stuff happen. And we're going to have to be the reactor that actually gets this explosion going, that changes this thing. You know what I mean? So do whatever you can, but whatever you do, be a voice for these kids out here, because they need it. You know what I mean? Like, they can't afford to not have our voices out here speaking out about this, because they're going to die. They're going to die tonight, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. Be a voice for these kids out here, whatever you do. Don't shut up because somebody tells you they don't like to hear it, and don't shut up because somebody tells you you need to go away and sit down and be quiet. That's exactly what everybody wants, and, forget it. You know what I mean? These kids are dying, and we need to be their voice. Do whatever you can, and together, all of us together, hopefully we'll make a difference, right? So have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and the rest of the week, my show page there and stuff. So thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I know it's a half an hour. Like, people spend really like 2 years with me. Like, I really appreciate that. You wouldn't believe how much. Have a great night, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.